Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Wanderer's Guide, the YouTube channel dedicated to helping you experience the most epic adventures ever. I'm your host, Ed Preston, a retired guide with over 40 years of experience working in the American Southwest. And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact methods and resources that I personally used to find over 6,000 ancient sites, cliff dwellings, and rock art panels, not just in the Southwest, but all across the United States. So if you're willing to put in the time and effort, you can find them too. You know, sometimes people have asked me why I spent so much of my life hunting down archaeological sites. Like, aren't you tired of looking at crumbling walls and bighorn sheep yet? My answer is, well, yes, I've definitely seen enough images of bighorn sheep at this point, but there's a lot more to contemplate in the rock art than just the sheep. And there's nothing quite like being in a remote canyon, all by yourself, feeling that direct link to the past as you explore an ancient site. So at the end of the day, I think it's really about connection. These sites are windows into lives that were lived right here where you're standing. People raised families here, celebrated harvests, tracked the stars, and left messages on canyon walls that we're still trying to understand today. Unfortunately, most visitors to the Southwest only know how to find the sites that are in national parks and monuments, so they never get to have the sort of experience that I'm talking about. That's partly because ruins and rock art panels aren't shown on standard hiking maps, and while a lot of people do know where they are, many won't share the locations, out of the mistaken belief that if we just keep everything secret, they'll last forever. The truth is, nothing lasts forever, and archaeological sites are no exception. They're eroding away whether anyone ever visits them or not from vandalism and looting, but just by natural processes. A good example of this is Spruce Tree House at Mesa Verde, which is now closed. This closure isn't due to looting or vandalism, but because the roof of the alcove has become unstable and it's going to collapse. When it does, it's going to take out a significant portion of the ruin. Now, nobody caused the roof above Spruce Tree House to become unstable. That's just part of the same natural processes that form alcoves in the first place. In fact, this type of roof collapse is probably one reason that people stopped building in alcoves. The possibility that tons of rock could fall on you at any moment is pretty good motivation to find another place to live. It's also a good thing to keep in mind when visiting any cliff dwelling. So let's jump right into how I found 6,000 ancient sites. Well, the first resource you're going to need is time, and plenty of it. In my case, it took about 40 years because it's really detective work, and for me, that became something of an obsession. My own journey down this particular rabbit hole started with archaeology textbooks. I've probably read at least 100 of them over the years. Now, I'm not talking about glossy coffee table books. I mean literally old textbooks. The best place to find them is in used bookstores, especially those in university towns like, Flagstaff and Durango. While textbooks don't give specific locations, they do give you the big picture. What cultures lived in a particular area, during which time periods, and what did their settlement patterns look like? They teach you to think like an archaeologist. Where would ancient people have chosen to build? Well, near water sources, in defensible positions, with southern exposure for winter warmth, and someplace nearby where crops could be grown. If we're talking about rock art left by ancient hunter-gatherers, that's usually found near water sources that would have attracted the animals that they hunted, or along annual migration routes. After a while, you start to develop an eye for likely locations. Of course, there are also modern guidebooks available on Amazon, and the Canyon Hiking Guide to the Colorado Plateau by Michael Kelsey is a pretty good example. It was first published in 1986 and is now in its, 7th or 8th edition. I've owned 3 of them. Over the years, it was split into 2 different versions, one for technical canyons and another for non-technical canyons. Of course, the archaeological sites are now in the non-technical version. I definitely found a lot of sites using this book, so it's with all due respect and gratitude for Kelsey's achievement when I say there are a couple of issues with it. To show you what I mean, let's look at my old copy of the 4th edition, now pretty dog-eared from all the use. Because Kelsey relies completely on written directions, he has to use ridiculously small print combined with a lot of shorthand to make everything fit. and this makes his books extremely difficult to read, in my opinion. In fact, the print is so small that I personally have to use a magnifying glass just to read it. Also, his maps are pretty crude compared to a standard topo, and that makes them unsuitable for navigating in the field. There have been many instances where I had to return to a place multiple times in order to find a ruin or a rock art panel. Now, that's not a big deal if you live within say 100 miles or so of that site, but it's really frustrating if you live on the other side of the country and this is your one chance to visit. In fact, it was my experience using this book that led me to go with PDF ebooks and GPS files when I created the Wanderer's Guide. Not only does that solve all the problems I just mentioned, it also solves the problem of having to put out a new edition every time something changes. The next major resource I want to mention are all the archaeological societies and historical associations out there. All 50 states have at least one organized statewide body dedicated to history and archaeology, and they all put out videos, presentations, and field reports. The organizations in the Southwest states are especially prolific when it comes to putting out videos, with university professors giving lectures about their research projects. While they don't provide GPS coordinates, I've learned a tremendous amount by watching these video presentations on YouTube. I'll put a list of all the state associations below if you want to check that out. The next resource I want to mention are old maps. I've spent countless hours looking at USGS maps in the Online History Archive, which contains every map ever produced by the agency from 1884 to 2006. You can view them and download them for free. And these maps are a veritable gold mine for information of all kinds. For example, a lot of people who are into metal detecting use these archival maps to find old mining claims and ghost towns. In terms of finding archaeological sites, these maps will often have notations like old Indian ruins or rock writings. Here's an example of that. The two sun symbols mark the location of two ruins, but they're sitting on top of a base layer topographic map in CalTopo. If I move them out of the way, you can see that the ruins were already marked on this base layer map, though they would have been much more difficult to find or discover without the sun symbols. Most of the ruins shown in the Wanderer's Guide aren't shown on the base layer underneath. If you're looking at the USGS archive and find a site that you want to check out, you can actually download the historic map and then upload it to CalTopo as a layer. Then adjust the transparency of that layer, effectively using it as an overlay. This allows you to transfer the location shown on the old map to the one underneath. Another resource that I found useful is Google Earth. In fact, a lot of popular YouTube creators, such as Desert Drifter, Toadmoto, and the Trek Planner, specifically mention that they found the subject of today's video using Google Earth.
I was there in search of something I found on Google Earth.
What brings me out here today is a find on Google Earth.
While exploring Google Earth, I stumbled across something truly bizarre.
Yeah, that's good storytelling, but based on my own experience, I don't think it really happens that way very often. I think it would be more accurate to say they found the site using Google Earth because they already knew approximately where to look. Usually from using one or more of the other resources that I'm showing you in this video. It's good storytelling because, well, it sounds a lot more interesting and mysterious than admitting you found it in a guidebook. Having said that, Google Earth is a great tool once you know approximately where to look. You can absolutely use it to find telltale signs of where the exact location of something might be. Wall alignments, circular depressions, and large alcoves and cliff faces near water sources are pretty good indicators. And a maze of trails that converge at a particular spot in a canyon that's visible in the satellite images is usually a dead giveaway. But just flying around in satellite view hoping to stumble on these things, well, that'd be a waste of time in my opinion. The next resource I want to mention is local knowledge, and we shouldn't discount that. While a lot of people think they should never share locations, that doesn't mean that you can't ask. And when you do find someone that doesn't mind sharing, they might be the most valuable resource of all. Over the years, I've talked to ranchers, BLM workers, fellow hikers, and old-timers in small towns all over the West. These folks know the land intimately. When they reply, "Oh yeah, there's some old ruins up that side canyon," you've suddenly got a lead on something that might not be shown in any guidebook or on any map. And if someone tells you, "Oh no, there's nothing like that around here," that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Keep asking other people you meet along the way. Some of my best finds came because I didn't give up. Of course, there are a lot of sites I simply stumbled on while I was out hiking around or driving around, not even looking for ruins. Once you tune into what to look for, this sort of serendipitous discovery gets easier and easier. For example, if you're hiking down a canyon and see an alcove on the north side that's been blackened by cooking fires, that's a great indication that there's probably something inside, even if you can't see any other evidence from where you're standing. Of course, it really helps to bring a good pair of binoculars whenever you're out exploring. In more recent times, the drone has become a common way to see if there's anything up there worth climbing up to see. Just make sure you're in a place where it's legal to fly that drone before you take off. And finally, it's important to mention the museums. Small town museums all across the Southwest often have staff who are incredibly knowledgeable and will be happy to point you toward resources that are not mentioned here. Stuff like written accounts from original settlers in the area or old newspaper articles. It's stuff that you could find on your own, but it would take a lot more time. My process looks something like this. I'd spend weeks researching a particular region, using all the tools I just mentioned. Then I'd plan a trip and spend a few weeks hiking, talking to locals, following leads, and exploring likely places. Many days I wouldn't find anything at all, but other times I'd round a bend and there it would be, a pristine panel of petroglyphs, or a granary tucked into an alcove, or the outline of an ancient village on the ground. After 40 years, thousands of hours doing research, and thousands of miles hiking, I was able to discover the location of about 6,000 ancient sites, including many that I can't legally publish. There are over 2,000 sites in my database that I can share, but the others you'll have to find on your own. Some version of this process is what people mean when you ask about an ancient site online and they reply, "You have to do your own research." Well, here's the thing. The process that I've just described in this video definitely works, but it's incredibly time-consuming. As I mentioned, it took me 4 decades to reach this point. And even now, if I want to explore a new area, I'm still looking at a week or more of research before I ever lace up my hiking boots. While I personally enjoy the research process, the detective work, and the puzzle-solving aspect of it, I also recognize that most people simply don't have that much time. They just want to go and hike something this weekend and see something really amazing, which is exactly why I created the Wanderer's Guide. The Wanderer's Guide is the resource I wish I'd had when I first started this journey, with detailed information about archaeological sites all across the Southwest. Every site includes GPS coordinates so that you can navigate with confidence, even in remote backcountry areas. This not only makes it safer for you, but it also minimizes your impact on the land. But here's what makes it really powerful. All of this GPS data has been preloaded into 2 popular hiking apps, CalTopo and Gaia GPS, so you can navigate on your phone even without cell phone service. And I've also converted everything so that it can be quickly loaded into Google Earth, which means you can plan your trips from home, visualize the terrain, and understand exactly what you're getting into before you go. But the Wanderer's Guide isn't just about making it easier to find these places. It's also about experiencing them in the right way, with context, respect, and an understanding of what it is you're seeing. These sites are part of our shared national heritage. They exist on public land that belongs to all of us, and it's paid for with our taxpayer dollars. And I believe that when people can actually visit them, when they can stand in those ancient places and feel that connection to the past, they become the next generation of people who care about preservation. The Wanderer's Guide is my way of sharing 40 years of exploration with anyone who wants to experience the Southwest on a deep dive level. So, thanks for watching. As always, have fun out there, be safe, and leave it exactly as you found it by taking only photos and leaving only footprints. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. Until next time, happy trails, and I hope to see you out there.